am Shyam Adhikari, and I have been working as a UI/UX designer since 3.5 years, and currently working as a Scrum Master and a UI/UX designer in a small startup. So let me get straight into my topic. So my topic is what is a design system. So generally, before talking about what actually is the design system, how I want to talk it about how does it evolve as a product. So generally, always designer loves a good UI kit, right? So however, but just putting together toolkits and style guides, it seems that recently there's been an increasing focus placed on a design system. So why design system is needed, right? So companies like big companies like Shopify, Intercom, Slack, Uber, and other big enterprise companies are building in-house team to focus especially for the design system. So why does it need it, right? So people are starting to realize the importance of design system in a company. So why is it really important to have actually a big team to create some design system? So that's what I'll be talking about. So it's the design system is basically, it's not just a framework or UI or toolkit, just a component library. It's more than a style guide or a set of code like guidelines that you need to do this and this. It's far more than that. It's like your prospectus of a company or a product that you are trying to target to a market. It's like a face of a company that you are showing to people. If let me give you an example. If you go into a Slack or Uber, then you will already know that it's already a Slack. That it will hit in our subconscious mind that it's an Uber, it's a Slack. So this is why we need to build the design system. So it's more than just a framework. So in a simple word, it's more than a framework. And there is many facets to a good design system. So starting with a company, cultural, mission, or trickling all the way down to branding, copywriting, components library, and other design languages as well. The higher level points are arguably the most important aspect of any design system, but for the purpose of this article, right? So what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to assume that a company, you know who you are, right? So company needs to know who we are, what we are trying to do, what we are trying to give to the end user. So that's what the design system does is. It defines about the component, right? It's not just the component like button, text, any other things that goes into design. It's more about a company or a product, which faces is which going to see by people like for end users. So moving on to the next. So before designing a style palette, like before starting to have a design system, we need to break down our everything product into a skeleton components, like component that we need to lay a foundation for everything, like what we are going to use and what's going into our elements. So firstly, we need to define what we are going to use. This is what we do at first. Then we need to break a product down into a most bare ones, like in the most simplest form for something to make it usable, not just usable, to make it a multiple times reusable component. So we need to break down into a very irreducible minimum, like we can go further than that. So we need to get into the very minimum basics. So firstly, we need to do that. For a product or a company, we need to define our skeleton. We need to do that at very first. That's the thing. And secondly, starting here, I'll give a brief about generally a design system, design guidelines. So we need to start from colors. So I think color is only style property that it seems the modern design tools understand and can be named, right? So it can be used everywhere, like for your branding, for your logo, for your app bar, like anything. Color is always there. So we choose color for our brandings, like for brand color, app colors, everything. So So if we are focusing on producing a design system, so we need to start from a color. So we need to define our primary, secondary, tertiary colors and sets of gray colors that we need to firstly define. And another like it's not a rule, but we use that sentimental colors like green for success, red for warning, sorry, danger, like some kind of, and yellow for warnings. Similar, firstly we define colors and then we move on to next. So okay, regarding the colors, I like to add some points. So if we are starting from colors, then we might need to do the very light gray for backgrounds and slightly darker gray for borders, lines, stroke dividers, and medium gray for subheadings, supporting body copy, and dark gray for maybe headings, body copy, and background. Actually, it's not a rule, but you can follow this kind of grid one. No? You can follow it like this. And moving to next is shadow. I think shadow is everywhere, whether it's in our app or web or anything. Shadow. I think shadow separates the same elements, same kind of elements from each others. Like we need to use the subtle shadow, right? Or subtle shadow to raise interactive component and add affordance. Like if we have a button that needs to be pressed, and if we add a shadow to it, then it produces some kind of intuitiveness to a user, that then they might think that it's the button and we need to press it. So another is a strong shadow to give perspective to drop downs and popovers and other similar components. So we can use shadow for that. And distant shadow, like and a much bigger shadow for the model components, model cards, and a bigger component in UIs. So we use shadows. Moving to next, and type scale. I think this one is the most important while developing a design system. I think typography matters somewhat must while designing for a user interface, like for either app or web or any like for branding, logos, anything. So typography matters the most, and I'll give a brief on typography. So it's like a notes on a piece of music. So if you give it a good note, and it will produce a good music. Similar to if you give it a good typography, good hierarchy on type scale, then it will produce a really good UI. So it's like a, so we need to define our type scale. It's not actually a rule, but what we do is slightly larger size for the large body copy in our blogs, like blogs and headers, something like that. A couple larger setting for largest for heading and subheadings, and there is a bit larger size for section titles. Actually, this like a measure for type scale is pretty defined. Like we can use 34 pt for a bigger one heading, and 60 pt for our text, paragraph text. Similar to that, you can find it on either. If you follow Google Material Design, you can find it even there, and either in a Cupertino IS guidelines as well. So this is my view on type scale. So this one is the most important part. Firstly, we need to define what kind of typography we are going to use in our app. Like if we are going to use sans serif, sans serif family or serif family, firstly we need to define on that what we are going to use for our product and for our company face, like for our everything. If you develop an app, web, print materials, or anything in a social media marketing, anything. So we need to firstly define our typography, and then we need to move to next. Like so another one is border areas. I think it's a little bit component while developing a design system, but I think it's far more crucial and important to define a border areas. So what we need to do is to make it a symmetrical design, and to make a very similar, like a symmetric UI. We need to define the body radius. So we can define a body radius in a way that a small border radius for a tiny components, like a checkbox, tags, maybe labels. Small medium borders for the medium border radius for buttons, inputs, and similar components which might user interact with, and larger border radius for the larger components generally, if we said that it might be, for example, a small border radius can be 2 pixels for small and 4 pixels for medium and 8 pixels for larger border radius. So this is how we need to actually define the border radius for our components, what we are going to design, like a button, cards, drop down, anything that goes into UI. So next one is spacing skills. So is another important things to that we need to focus on is spacing, right? So to produce a good visual hierarchy, we need to provide a spacing skill in a very common, in a appropriate way. So what matters the most while in design is white space also. So whether is where is spacing apart links in a header, is spacing apart items in a grid, adding some distance between avatar like a profile picture and another items in a UI list. So or a link or padding out or drop down in a component. So white space plays a very important role. Link either with a like the type, we can ensure that each of our components and layout will be uniform. So if we focus on spacing in an appropriate way, then our layouts and our UI will be uniform and symmetrical, and it will be more intuitive to the end user. So what I suggest is, if you were going to spacing skill, then I would like to suggest everyone to do by the multiple of 4. Like if you produce a 4 pixels for the 2 profile pixel, then might be another for 8 pixels. In a way, 8, 12, 16, then 20, 24 in a similar manner. I suggest you to do in a multiple of 4. That then it will produce a really good hierarchy. So we need to focus on spacing skill as well. So another one more aspect is letter spacing. It's very small. It's like a micro interaction in our app. It doesn't really affect the much, but it's very crucial if you wish to produce a really good UI. So letter spacing is just another useful property which can use to tighten up larger heading or always small heading to breathe. Like if you have a larger heading in our design, then we can lesser the letter spacing, and if we have a paragraph and long list of something, then we can have more apart the letter space between them. So this is how we do for letter spacing. And moving to next. So I think I have defined some components like bare bone components, and we can start from building a simple component library from what we have defined earlier in our slides. So let's say I designed a button here based on my principle which I explained earlier. So you can see that in a button I gave it a small border radius, a medium white font, and then 32 pixels of width and subtle shadow for a small subtle shadow for the button, and blue color for the button. And I assume that blue is my primary color. So this is how we design a component. I just give you the example on button, and you can create as much as you want UI components from the principle that we defined earlier. So in a similar manner, we can define more components for our products. So from that color, font sizes, shadows, and padding values are plugged directly from the style palette, which we defined above, and we can simply define like this: a divider component, column title, link, padded link, second link, small heading, drop down component, buttons, cards, anything that goes into our UI. We can create them from our core principal values. And let me tell you one thing, that is, it's not actually a rule that we need to follow this, but it's a way, it's your practice for your organization, that you need to create something. If you need to create something differently from others, then you need to follow the design systems. So here are I think I choose some which really have a good examples for the design system. You can go over Slack design, and Uber, brand.uber.com. So they have really defined well about the design system, their core principle, their values, and their all over the design components about their companies, illustrations, icons, font, colors, everything. And I forgot to mention two biggest design system here. That is Google Material Design, and another is IIS Cupertino. So these are the examples which I really follow a lot, and actually I try to learn a lot from them, because they are really a big enterprise company. As you already know them, so you can pick any of them and you can learn from them a lot. So guys, that's all about the design system. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, for the cross-platform, uh,
Yeah.
so talking about the Flutter, so the design is inbuilt, or we need to use certain plugin for the animation or something
Uh,
other thing.
that's the point. If you want to use an inbuilt design system or anything, you can go with either Material Design, or for iOS you can go with Cupertino iOS. They have really good documentation as well, good examples, and good components they have already developed on that. So if you want to create a different identity for your either product or your organization, then we need to create our own design system. That's the main point. So if you want to use built-in products, built-in components, built-in products, or built-in design values, then you can get it over either. There is a lot. You can follow Andesign, or this one Slack, either Atlassian, or sorry, Salesforce Design. You can follow any of them. You can get inspired from them, but I think we need to produce our own design system. That's the main point.
Okay, and do the in the UX UI, do the framework is needed, just like means whenever doing a design, the wireframe is done. So what's your thought on that? So without the wireframe, also the design can be done, or wireframe should be done
Okay,
and
okay,
then only the design
okay.
should be
I,
implemented.
I got your question. So if you create a wireframe, basically the design principle actually brought from a single plain paper, and we draw something, and then we discuss on it, then we produce a wireframe, then we prototype it, then we show it to the developer and the whole team, and then when the whole team agrees on that, then we produce then we send it to the development. So if we directly design something, then I think that's not it's not that's not a appropriate way. I would say that it's not a rule, but I would say it's not an appropriate way to do that, because after development, if we didn't go with prototype or wireframing, and if we go directly in the user interface design, then it might waste some our time, because if the design didn't get approved, then we might lose our I think the valuable time. That's my point.
Okay. So yeah. So this was another question, and moreover, as you mentioned, so about the freelancing things stuffs. So can you say some of your thoughts, your opinions and view
Okay.
on the
So on a short note, freelancing has both pros and cons. For one, pros is you don't have any boss to get on your head. Like you can work anytime, you can work from anywhere. You don't need to be on office for 9 to 5 and do the exactly the same stuff they were told you to do. You don't need to do that if you are working as a freelancer. That's the main benefit, I think. You don't have any time constraint. You can either work 12 a.m., 12 p.m. and anytime, anywhere you want, as you wish. If you wish not to work on Sunday, Monday, it's fine. It's all up to you. That's the main benefit of being a freelancer. And another cons of being a freelancer is, I think, you won't get some mentoring from anyone. Like if you are working alone, if you are working from home, then there isn't a possibility of being in a team and collaboration with others, talking to others, and understanding the others' core values about values and principles on things. And products. So I think that's the cons. That's the main disadvantages of being a freelancing worker. I think that's the point.
Okay, yeah, and that's the reality only. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And the moving with the last question, and then we will wrap up the webinar.
Okay.
Basically for the design, so Miss, how do you think that is the design is value in the IT company? Because in the IT company, morely the developers are will get more value, right, rather than a designer. So for a product. So for a product, designer is also needed for an IT company, or just a developer can also design.
Okay.
If both
One
man
thing. Okay.
design. Yeah.
Okay, one thing I strongly disagree with you because you might have been saying that designer are less valuable or either or designer are less paid than a developer, but I strongly disagree on this point. Main focus of a UI UX designer is to delight a user, right? We are developing something for the end user. We are not developing something to make it good for ourselves, or either for a developer or the project leader or the organization itself. So we are giving it for the end user. So main focus of the user UI UX designer goes for the end user. So what they want, what they want to see on their screen. So how will they interact with the components? That's the main point of the designer that needs to think of for either an app or web. So I think developer and designer are equally valuable for a company to grow and to some product to be successful. I think both are really necessary. If a designer produces something that the developer can achieve, then there's not a point. There is not a point to develop something. And if a developer design not designed a good things that the end user wants, and then I think that that's not even a point to develop something which is not going to delight a user. So main point is main core point of a UI UX designer is to delight the end user. So that's the principle, and I think every IT company should hire at least one UI UX designer, in my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it was nice thought on here. Yeah, so just I question you because most of the people think about
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that only.
I
Because
got it. Yeah.
yeah, because in a small company, they
Yes,
think that
let me give you an example. In our we do have a one startup, a small startup, and we do have six developers, and I just want I'm only one in as a UX designer. So I got your point. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for coming on Take Over Nepal Series 20.